Hey guys, I'm E, and here's the thing. Today my sports videography video is going to be a bit different than what I usually do. Because since I obviously don't know everything about sports videography, I decided to reach out to people who excel at things that I don't. So today, in this video, I'm interviewing fellow YouTuber CM de la Vega. He's an artist sharing his passion, creativity, and knowledge mainly through motion design and graphics for professional sports. Some of the highlights of his career include working on 2 ESPN 30 for 30 documentaries, 5 Super Bowls, and 4 seasons of Thursday Night Football for the NFL Network. He also started a YouTube channel as a way to give back, and today he's giving back once again by answering my questions. So CM de la Vega, first of all, thanks for agreeing to doing this interview and coming onto the channel. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Every day is a gift. So blessed to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to just talk about graphics, talk about sports.
Yeah, well, I'm particularly glad to have you on the channel because I'm not a visual effects expert by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that you could bring a lot of insight into what you do, and also how you got there, basically. So that's pretty much where I want to start. Like I'd like you to start by telling your story in terms of like what and where did you study and how did you gradually made your way into the NFL?
So my story is a little long. I think every career is long, but I'll keep it short. I grew up in Miami in South Florida. I actually majored in computer engineering, University of Miami. And I didn't get into filmmaking until a couple years after I graduated college. And once that filmmaking bug hit, that was it. I knew I wanted to be in this field. I love the cinematography aspect, the editing, and the graphics, the visual effects. So I really gravitated towards that. And it took me a couple years. This was the early 2000s. So imagine, you don't have YouTube. You don't have all these resources and tutorials. So back then it was just whatever blogs you can find, whatever website or books. I would go to the library and read books on photography. So for me, it was a learning process by myself, doing short films. And when I would do these short films, I would, make it a goal to teach myself graphics, visual effects, editing. So that was the beginning. And I did that for about 5-6 years. And afterwards, I made the big jump to move to Los Angeles. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have a place to stay, but it was definitely a challenging time. But you have to persevere. If you really want it, if you're really passionate about it, you need to persevere. And it took me 6 months to find a job. It was a friend of my brother was able to get me an interview for this production company that produced cable television shows. So I got in doing motion graphics, After Effects. And the funny thing is I didn't know After Effects. I knew I knew compositing, I knew basic, graphics that I would do in Vegas Pro because that was a software that I was using back in Miami. And they gave me an opportunity, and I'm, very grateful, very blessed that they gave me that opportunity. And it was just showing them like, look, hey, I've done these videos, these independent music videos in Miami, these short films where I did the best in motion graphics. It was really a little crude. It was a little, very basic, elementary, but it showed promise. And they gave me that opportunity. I ran with it. And on the job, I started to learn After Effects. The journey to get to the NFL took a little longer. At first, I worked at the production company for 2 years, and afterwards I freelanced a little bit for AOL Latino, and that's where I really got my start doing sports videography, sports editing. My friend and I, we were doing boxing videos, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez. So we had that opportunity. So that was like my first start into the world of sports and editing, sports videography, sports graphics. Then afterwards, I worked for Fox Sports. I had a friend who was a producer. They needed an editor. I jumped in for a couple of years, worked there. And then after all those years, I think it was between 2008 and 2015. So it's about 7 years doing that. Yeah, I applied for the NFL. I needed a job, and so I applied. And at that time, I built a very solid demo reel. I had decent amount of work that I could showcase. And I also had worked on an ESPN 30 for 30. So I had a good foundation, good reel to showcase, and just blessed that they gave me that opportunity to work at the NFL. They really enjoyed my reel. And they were looking for an editor who can not only edit, but can do motion graphics. And I tell people that's really important. Be really good in editing, be really good in motion graphics, because you'll be unstoppable. I know it's hard. It is really challenging to do both jobs. And sometimes you're just trying to be very creative, thinking of what to do design-wise, animation-wise. And you have all of a sudden you have to switch to the editorial, and how to combine all these different shots to create, to do storytelling and create this story or narrative that you're trying to do editorially. So it's quite challenging because you're juggling between both. But if you can do both, you'll have more opportunities. And I'm a witness to that. You can do both, you'll have a lot more opportunities.
No, it's true. But you're right. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. But once you get there, it's just, yeah. As soon as I found your YouTube channel, within 10 seconds of looking at your stuff, I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, it's obvious. But I was going to ask as well, did the sport thing, were you always like big into sports? And was that sort of at the back of your mind that you wanted to do sports videography, or did it just sort of happen by accident?
I've always been a fan of sports. I love baseball, football. Those are my two favorite sports. I grew up in South Florida, in Miami, so I followed the Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino, Don Shula, and the Marlins and the Miami Heat. And so I grew up a big sports fan. And when I moved out here to LA to pursue a career in filmmaking, in editing, in graphics, I really didn't know that this field existed: sports videography, sports graphics, sports editing, sports visual effects. This is relatively a new field that is really emerging. And really in the last, I think, 5 to 6 years, I've just seen it little by little just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it amazes me. And I feel very fortunate that I'm in this relatively new field, this new art form. You're combining, all the aspects of filmmaking, but into sports. And, there's a lot of wonderful sports documentaries that come out in the last 5-6 years. Obviously, you have the 30 for 30 series, and you have other great ones as well. But you can see that a lot of people are applying the filmmaking skills, the filmmaking techniques into sports. So I feel very fortunate that I kind of just was there at the right time, at the right place. Since I'm a huge sports fan, it just gels and works perfect.
Yeah, I feel you, because I'm sort of the same, where I came from a TV background and sort of did freelance and things like that, and then eventually got the chance to work for the Canadians in Montreal, and it was just like, it just dawned on me at the time. They're like, wow, you can actually do like the job that I wanted to do, but actually do it within the hobby that I do in my, on my free times, on my weekend, just combine the whole thing into one cool job. It's like, geez, I'm never doing anything else again. Because before that, the TV shows that I would work on, they were always on, like, I would be very grateful to have a full-time job doing, video editing, which was my thing, but it was still like the topics of the shows I'd work on weren't really something that I would relate to. So it was fun, but it wasn't like. And then when you start working on hockey and all these things, I was like, geez, this is so much more fun. It just takes it to another level. And I think it helps with motivation as well. Like when you really want the product to be great, then it sort of pushes you to do a better job. Anyway, I was going to ask you, basically when it comes to your job with the NFL Network, can you sort of describe what your role is and what type of content do you typically work on?
The work that I do at the NFL consists of editing and motion graphics. It's a hybrid. It's actually a very unique position because you have to think editorially, and then you have to use motion graphics or visual effects to enhance the story, to enhance the video piece. Sometimes that involves creating an environment that could be a 3D environment, it could be a 2D environment, or it could be simply adding graphics on top of the footage. So my role pretty much is both editing and adding the motion graphics on the video. And most of the videos that I do at the NFL, there are several types of videos. Number one is music videos, where it's just, high paced, very fast track, and you're just cutting really fast. That's to pump up, the fans, get them excited about what they're about to watch. Another type of video is more of a narrative, where you tell a little bit more of a story. And the other one, it's just anything that the producers think about. It could be anything from fan radio calls to it could be something with more voiceover. So those are like the 3 type of videos that I usually edit at the NFL.
Okay. And is it like what does a typical day sort of look like for you? Is it like a team effort? Like, how does that work?
At the NFL, I'm part of the Thursday night football team, and it consists of about 4 to 5 editors, and that is our main crew. So each one of us will have different assignments. Sometimes we're a really good team. We have a lot of chemistry, so we're always helping each other as far as giving input, just suggesting ideas. Now, for me, it's a little different because I'm the one that will have more graphics heavy pieces. So whatever I do, you'll have one piece, at least a minute or 30 seconds or 45-second piece that will be super, super heavy on graphics. Like I said, that could be in an environment that I create, either a 3D environment, maybe I'm creating something with Element 3D, or just simply a 2D environment that's obviously in After Effects. And usually Mondays is you get your assignments on Monday, and you just grab the footage. There's so much footage that, we all spend Monday just going through all the footage, the whole entire game. And I mean, sometimes you get an assignment, we want to see all the best plays of, let's say, the Miami Dolphins, and you're in week 14. So you have to go to week 1 to week 13. So there's like 13 games. Let's say they had a bye week. So that's 12 games you have to scrub through, look at the best plays, and it's a lot of work. So Mondays are usually finding your footage, finding the best angles. Tuesday is starting to put your cut, edit at least, have a V1, a first draft. And for me, Tuesdays, I try to have a first cut, and then immediately the second half of the day is to start the graphics. Because believe it or not, doing the graphics takes longer than editing the piece. I found myself... I
can definitely believe that.
I find myself spending more time doing graphics than editing. There's, I think, 9 out of 10 times I'll spend at least twice as long doing the graphics than editing. And the edit I'll do pretty fast. Once I have my selection, once I have the shots that I want to use, and I have a really good track, it almost falls into place. So the editing is pretty quickly. It's a quick process for me, and where I spend most of my time, most of my effort is really in the graphics, because that takes the longest. And sometimes you're bouncing different ideas, you're trying to see how to make it work, and you always want to add that last detail to just polish it up and make it so much better. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, really, our show airs at, I believe, at around 3 p.m. Pacific time. So that's 6 o'clock Eastern time here in the United States. But we need to wrap around noon. So Thursday, we get in really early, around 6 o'clock in the morning. And we really need to be pushing all our videos by noon. So yeah, Thursday is just last minute changes, revisions from that the show producers want you to do, and any polishing. But for me, I'm always working on the graphics until the very last minute, which I know, so it puts a lot of stress and anxiety for the show producers. But I think at this point, they know that it's going to be, I'm going to finish on time, and the end product is going to be worth it.
And at that level, I imagine you have to factor in render times as well.
Yeah, let me tell you a story. So I think it was two seasons ago at the NFL, I was doing this puzzle piece for the Kansas City Chiefs, and where you see it's all 2D, but it was done in After Effects, but using 3D space. So you're seeing the puzzle piece coming together, and I had lights, so I enabled shadows. So just enabling shadow put my rendering time 3 to 4 times the length, and I think it was like 2:00, and I actually ended up like splitting the project, I think, into 2 or 3 different sections and having 2 to 3 different machines render those sections just to make the deadline, just to put it together. And at the very end, I think I was like, I'm not gonna make the deadline. So okay, for this little piece, let me turn off the shadow. Let me disable the shadow. Let me put a perspective shadow, fake it, just so I can render. They can render like in no time, so it can be a fast render, and then piece it together in Premiere, and then just push the video, and we're ready to go. So that was one of the times where I kind of cut it to the very, we're cutting it close to the very last minute.
That's amazing. I saw also on your website that you worked on a few Super Bowls. So is it the same sort of content that you produce for Super Bowls? It's still with the NFL Network, and same type of videos?
So the Super Bowl work is also done inside the NFL Network. Now it's a different team, but the producers that I work for Thursday Night Football, it overlaps. Some of them also produce different segments or different shows for the Super Bowl. So I've been blessed to have that opportunity where they really enjoyed my work for Thursday Night Football, and they invite me to come back and work for the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl work is a little different. What I do for the Super Bowl, and it's been 5 Super Bowls actually that I've worked on, which is amazing. It's just been a blessing. And the work is I create the Super Bowl Open for Super Bowl week. So what the NFL Network does, the week leading up to the Super Bowl, they're live on the site of the Super Bowl. So this past year, it was in Miami. So they were there in Miami, and they were broadcasting live. I think it was about 8, maybe 6, 7, 8 hours live every single day that week leading up to the Super Bowl. So they need an open to open up their show, and it's Super Bowl live. So I create that. It's between 45 seconds to a minute long. I create that open, high energy, high paced, lots of graphics, lots of eye candy, like they say. And this year was a little bit more. This year, actually, they gave me more work, which was awesome. And in addition to creating the Super Bowl Open, I was also creating the bumpers that would go for that show. And one interview that I cut an interview, they interviewed Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, and it was in Spanish. So they had an English interview and a Spanish interview, and they came up to me, and since I speak Spanish, they wanted to know if I was available and to edit this interview. I said, of course, I'd love to edit this, this interview. So this year has been awesome because it was a lot more work, a lot more creativity, and it was my hometown. I grew up in Miami, like I mentioned. So for me, this was like a dream come true. Creating this open, creating the bumpers, editing this interview for the Super Bowl. Something that I would always watch in Miami, and obviously follow the Dolphins. It was just a dream come true, just putting all that Miami flavor into the work that I produced.
That's cool. Speaking of dream come true, I saw as well, you mentioned earlier actually that you worked on a couple of 30 for 30s, which that would definitely be a dream come true for me. I'm a huge fan. How did that sort of come about, and how does the process? I saw you made like a opening credits for the Free Spirits documentary. So like, how does a project like that work? Does the director sort of tells you his vision, and then you sort of take it from there and show him a draft? Like, what's the sort of the process for a project like this one?
I've worked on 2 30 for 30 documentaries, and one of my friend who I've worked at the first production company, and he actually was the one that got me my first interview. He was able to coordinate the interview for that TV production company, cable TV production company that I worked for my first 2 years out here. He moved on. After that, he moved on and he got a job working for the 30 for 30, the ESPN 30 for 30. So it just so happened a couple years later, he was working on one and they needed a motion graphic artist, and he just texted me, "Hey, are you available? Working on a ESPN documentary." And when I saw that text, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm ready. I am ready. Here's my reel. I showed them the reel. I met the director, producer of the documentary, and yeah, he gave me an opportunity. Now, every 30 for 30 is different, and the way that the 30 for 30s work is different production companies, and they pitch their ideas to ESPN. If ESPN likes your idea, then what they do is they not only they greenlight it, but they give you the budget. For example, $500K or $300K, and that's the money, and you're gonna produce it alongside with ESPN, because ESPN always have the final say, the final cut. But it's each 30 for 30 is produced by an independent production company or an independent filmmaker producer. So every circumstance is going to be different. Now, the two that I've worked for has been by the same director producer, Dan Ford, and he's a mentor. He's now he's a good friend of mine now, and he's a mentor of mine. And every director producer has his own methods of working, and obviously for the editing, the motion graphics. But with him, it's really, we're working together. We're working alongside. He really enjoys the whole motion graphics aspect of creating motion graphics and adding it to the documentary. So with him, it's more of like working together, as a team, and just really listening to him, because he's been working in the world of sports for many years. He's won multiple Emmys, so he already has a very distinct style. He already has an idea of exactly what he wants. So my role is really to just listen to what he wants, and really just execute what he wants and show him like, hey, this is what you want. All right, if it is, let's continue. If it isn't, then let's tweak it. And like I said, every director, every producer has a different method, but with him, it's just working together.
Oh, cool. I wanted to transition to your YouTube channel, because you've got a very one of my favorite YouTube channels, actually. Like, I go there's so much to learn. It's a bit it's very professional, but at the same time it's very well explained. Like, you're really good at sort of making it sound sort of simple and easy, but it's still very complex work. So for anyone who's trying to improve their visual effects skills, I would definitely recommend to go check out the channel, which I'll obviously link below. But I was going to ask you basically, why did you start the channel, and what were you trying to get out of it?
The YouTube channel, actually, I never intended to start or make tutorials on YouTube. It just kind of happened by chance. And believe it or not, I am, at the very beginning at least, I was very camera shy. And not only camera shy, just audio shy. Like, I would cringe when I would hear my voice after I recorded my voice. And what happened was, I actually worked on a documentary, independent documentary. A couple of friends of mine were from Miami, were working on a documentary, and they needed some help doing some graphics. I helped them. And they were doing a crowdsource. They were trying to find more money, doing I think it was Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So they were looking for the editor, the graphics artist, the producers to make a little video to try to help get a little bit more money for post-production costs. So what happened was, I decided to create a little tutorial. And actually, that's the very first tutorial that, if you go to my YouTube channel, that's the very first tutorial, the street art, the one that I use with Yasiel Puig. And that style was a style that I came up with for that documentary. So I created this little tutorial to help them for their crowdfunding campaign. And it just so happened that for some reason it got lost in the mix. They didn't use it. And yeah, this was like 2012, I believe, 2013, around that time. And after a while, I'm like, I had a YouTube channel, but I never had really uploaded videos. And I decided to just upload it on YouTube just because I didn't want that work that I did to, not to go to waste. So I put it, and to my surprise, it got very good comments, very good reviews. Not reviews, but really great comments, positive feedback, I should say, from the users. It didn't go viral or anything like that of that nature, but it got a lot of good, feedback, and a lot of people appreciated the tutorial. So I was like, that's interesting. So what happened? I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything for another tutorial or another video because, like I mentioned, I was a little camera shy, audio shy. And a couple of years later, I followed up with another tutorial on green screen techniques that I applied for a video that I did for my brother. I was doing a music video for my brother. And again, the same thing. It got really good feedback. A lot of people found it very useful and helpful. And I was like, man, that's interesting. Like they're really liking these videos. And again, it was very hard for me to speak in front of the camera, to record my voice. I would probably do like 50 takes back then.
I still do 50 takes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at 50 takes. I'm probably like 20 takes now. I brought it down. On my good days, maybe a couple takes. On my worst days, maybe 10 and whatever. But it's gotten down. That's the important thing, and it's one of those things that I've learned that practice makes perfect. And yeah, at the beginning of 2016, I made it a goal of myself to, hey, let's try to make more tutorials and see what happens. And since 2016, I've been trying to, and I'm not that consistent like other YouTubers. And the reason why is because, my professional work, the work that I do at the NFL, when I'm not at the NFL, I'm freelancing, doing work for nonprofit organizations, for other production companies. So between my professional work, my family time, family life, and just time for myself, which is so important, it's hard to maintain, a very consistent schedule, like one tutorial a week. And like you mentioned, my tutorials, I like to make more advanced tutorials or more in-depth tutorials rather than very simple techniques. So those tutorials actually take longer. It takes more time to do because it's figuring out the best method or the easiest way to explain to someone who may not be very familiar with After Effects, and make it easy. So if maybe your skill set or your level in After Effects is not that high, you can still follow the tutorial and you can still get to the end result that you see. So that's one of my goals, because I remember at the very beginning, when I was starting out in After Effects, I would watch these tutorials and some tutorials, and I would not be able to get to the end result that they were showing. And it was like they were either going so super fast or they skipped some steps, and it was always frustrating for me. And so I was like, no, I want to make sure that whoever watches this is understanding and they can achieve the effect, because that is, an accomplishment, and it's such a great feeling when you're able to produce something, to create something, and just give them that opportunity.
Do you know if your fans, your followers are mainly sort of people or sort of beginners or doing this as a hobby, or are they more professionals, or they're just football fans? Or?
There's a wide spectrum. We have people that are beginners to intermediate to advanced, and I try to do tutorials that will cater to either if you're a beginner or you're advanced. And that's one of my goals, to make these videos, regardless of your level in After Effects, you can get something out of it. If you're a beginner, obviously there's a lot of information. If maybe you're an advanced, maybe hopefully you'll pick up, a technique that you didn't know. But that's what I try to do. And lately, specifically this year, I've tried to focus more on just creating sports themed motion graphics or visual effects. So if you check it out, and you'll see that this year there's more of it. And that's because I've seen that this field of sports graphics, sports editing is really booming. It's really growing really big at a fast pace. And there is a demand for just creating sports graphics, and to have those tutorials for, those people who wish or desire to learn more and know. But that doesn't mean just because I do a tutorial that is maybe just a slideshow, or if it's sports related, you can apply that to any other thing. It doesn't have to be sports. Or if I do a slideshow, you can apply it to sports. So I try to do any, videos or tutorials that could be applied regardless of the theme, regardless of the field.
And what would you say, in your opinion, like someone who wants to become an expert in visual effects, what would be the best way to learn in your opinion?
Practice. Learn as much as you can. Definitely YouTube is a great resource. It's a great resource of tutorials, of knowledge. Just keep watching, and most importantly, keep practicing. Just practice makes perfect. And the more you practice, not only the better will you get, but you'll be learning more tools, more techniques that will just, your creativity will grow bigger. So practice a lot. Just give yourself a goal. I'm going to create this, with X, Y, and Z. And that's what I would do at the very beginning. I gave myself like, hey, let's say I had like a little job, or a friend needed a little project, then I would take that because it forced me to try to learn. Okay, I want to create, for example, I have a little map and I want to create the airplane to go from let's say New York to Los Angeles. Okay, and I want to move the camera as you see the path and as you see the airplane. So little, goals that you set out for yourself are really helpful because it forces you to learn.
And also saw that you took your YouTube channel to the next level by starting a master course. Can you tell me a bit more about that? What's the actual course? How does it work?
The After Effects master course is actually, it's been in the making for about 4 years, believe it or not. Since 2016, it was a dream of mine to create this online course in After Effects. And finally, we're in 2020 and it's out. So it's a great, amazing way. It was designed by my experience working here in the industry, and it's a series of tutorials where each lesson builds upon each other and each course builds upon each other, and it teaches you the tools, the techniques, and the workflow of After Effects, the most fundamental tools and techniques to really get you started, to get you up and running. Because one of the things that happened to me was when I was learning After Effects was it took me a pretty long time to fully really grasp and understand how the tools work. There's certain tools or certain techniques that is very complex. There's a lot of, if you drill down, there's a lot of parameters. Like, okay, what are all these parameters? And watching a tutorial, you probably only learn one or two, and that's about it. But what happened if you want to create something more complex? How can I use that tool to create something more complex or something bigger, whatever is in my imagination? So this course really, focuses on the tools, focuses on the techniques, and it, like I said, each one builds upon each other and just gives you that rock solid foundation for anyone who wants to learn After Effects or someone who has knowledge but really wants to take it to the next level. And finally, it's out, aemastercourse.com. And right now we have level 1 for beginners, we have level 2 for intermediate, and I'm working on level 3, which is the advanced course. And once I'm done with the advanced course, you should be at the level of the work that I do at the NFL. For example, all those complex camera moves and environments that you see that I do for the NFL. By that point, you should be able or have the knowledge to be able to execute and create these animation.
Oh, that's amazing. I was going to ask you as well, do you think for someone at your level, what tools do you think someone should sort of learn and really master and know how to use, other than After Effects, obviously? Is there other sort of software that you think are sort of absolutely necessary?
If you want to get into motion graphics or visual effects, definitely, in addition to After Effects, definitely got to master Photoshop, because Photoshop, you cut, you're going to be masking, cutting a lot. So master Photoshop. if you want to, you're gonna have to edit, so no Premiere as well. Premiere or any other editing software, for example, DaVinci Resolve, if you don't want to use Premiere. And I heard it's really good. I haven't used it yet. I've been wanting to try it out because I've heard really good things about Resolve. So learn Photoshop, learn an editing software, and if you want to get into 3D, definitely either Cinema 4D, Blender, and if you want to start maybe at an easier level, definitely get Element 3D, because you can do a lot of things with Element 3D and it works inside of After Effects and it's really great. I've actually used it to create really complex things at the NFL. And yeah, I think those are the main software.
I was going to ask you as well, what do you think of templates? Like, people who buy those templates on story blocks and things like that. As someone who definitely has the skills to build them, are you sort of against it or you embrace it?
Templates. So do I like templates or do I not? Or let's say dislike templates. I'll be honest with you. I've bought templates in the past. I bought templates. You have to gauge. For me, sometimes I'll buy templates. It depends on the job. I don't buy too many templates, but when I buy the templates, I go in, reverse engineer it, and I just redo. Because some of it is not, I see something that I like, but I need to adjust it to the way that that I need it for the project. So if I buy a template, I'm really modifying at least 50% of it. But it's up to you. If you're working and you know that the template is going to speed up the workflow, even though you know After Effects, even though maybe you might be good, if it's going to whatever is going to help you get to the finish line. Especially if you're in a time crunch, and it'll work, then use it. It's there for you. If it'll help you out, use them.
Cool. And my last question, how often do you get asked for Super Bowl tickets?
How often do I get asked for Super Bowl tickets? You know what? Thank God no one has asked me for Super Bowl tickets, but they've asked me if I'm going to be at the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the ones that are very few tickets available for employees at the NFL, and most of them will go to show producers or high level producers. But yeah, everyone asks me, are you going to be at the Super Bowl? I'm like, no, I'll be here in LA though. We can have a Super Bowl party if you want.
But anyway, that's it for me. So CM, I want to thank you again so much for spending the time, because this was very helpful for me, and I'm sure for a lot of my viewers who are really looking to get a grasp of how all these things really work. And I've been away from the broadcast for many years, so it's really good to have people like you sort of giving my viewers an insight into your world. So I hope that the NFL season will go ahead without too many bumps in the road, considering the times that we're in. And just hope we keep in touch and do more collaborations in the future.
Definitely, and I appreciate you, E. Thank you for having me on your show, on your channel. It's an awesome channel. I love what you're doing. I appreciate it, and definitely let's collaborate.
So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed my interview with CM Vega, and please let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do more interviews like this one in the future with other sports videography professionals. Also, please make sure you go visit CM's channel, especially if you're interested in pushing your motion graphics to the next level. This channel will definitely help you achieve that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. My name is E, and I hope I earned the privilege of your time.